Hi everyone, my name is Catherine Tao and this is the Data Standard Audio Experience. Today on our show we have Zehra Hussain, the Director of Engineering and Intelligence at Shippo. And today we're speaking about how to establish machine learning in a business. This is going to be a very interesting topic. A lot of different businesses are trying to really implement machine learning and a lot of complex models. So it's going to be interesting to hear it from your perspective, Zehra. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be speaking to you today.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for being on the show. And could you just tell the audience more about your background?
Yeah, so currently I am leading the intelligence wing at Shippo. Prior to Shippo, I was leading the ML and data science team at Kasasa. And Kasasa is like a financial technology company. We work with banks and credit unions. I started my career around 20 years ago as an analyst at Nielsen. And since then, I've done like several things in the data field, from consulting, BI development, data engineering, and now data science and machine learning. I do love to tinker with data and build data solutions for organizations. That's something I'm really passionate about. And outside of work, I'm a wife and a mother of two kids, and I love spending time with my family over the weekends and whenever. So yeah, that's about me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. So why do you think some companies are choosing not to use machine learning right now, despite this being a really hot new thing in the tech industry with all of the advancements that it's really made?
Yeah, there are quite a few reasons why, right? First, like it's different. People don't like different things. They don't like change. In a typical organization, data is being used for operational reporting, and maybe it informs decision making. And that's the most that data does, right? Data is generally an afterthought. So it's not something that's kind of in the forefront of strategy and is being thought of before they develop a product, right? It's after you develop a product, you're like, okay, now I need data to report on it and see how this product is doing. So with machine learning, what we are asking the leaders to do is we are asking them to bring data to the forefront, right? And incorporate data into their strategy. And that's not really an easy change for them. So that would be my first thing that I have at least experienced. Secondly, I mean, there's the fear of unknown. Okay, so it's still fairly new and it is perceived as a black box, and that perception doesn't help in adoption, right? So typically when, I program an application to do X, I define X and I say, go and do this X. And I define it exactly in written instructions, right? But with machine learning, X is unknown. And I'm using a data model to define and modify X based on what historical data is telling me. It takes time to trust this approach and know for sure in your heart that this approach is better than the traditional way of doing things. So that would be, I think, one of the major reasons as well. Then given AI's popularity, one would think, I'll just go ahead and establish this wing, right? But it's not a self-contained technology. That's another thing. So you can't just implement machine learning on its own. You'll have to work. Like it takes lots and lots of coordination. So the prerequisites for AI is, a well-functioning, for example, data infrastructure. It does require additional investment in terms of you have to acquire some skills, you have to acquire some new technology tools. In terms of skill set, you need to add data scientists, machine learning engineers, software engineers. In terms of tools, you need to also invest in machine learning development and deployment tools. So it does need a bit of a commitment in terms of resources, time, and tool investment, right? And then lastly, I think it's the leadership really needs to have like full buy-in. They need to drive like the data first culture and push the boundaries when they're doing their planning. They need to ask the question every time and say, can we use machine learning to solve this problem? So it really does have to come from the top. And so, yeah, given all of these factors, it is difficult for organizations to experiment with machine learning into production and, use this technology. So yeah, that's kind of my take to it.
Yeah, no, that's a great explanation. And in short, it sounds like it can be very costly in different situations. And so that's very interesting to hear. And how should someone, if they were to convince their higher up executives to listen to the data part of the team and just implement more ML, if they were just trying to convince the higher ups that we need to use more machine learning within our projects, how should they go about that?
So, well, there has to be a business need, right, that project is addressing. So the project has to be tied to a business outcome in terms of like ROI. For example, like if we build this recommendation system, we will improve the response rate of our marketing program by 20% or something like that. So it needs to have, so the executives need to know, like, I'm going to do this and what am I going to get in return, right? Because like I said, there is significant investment on their part in terms of time and resources. So they need to see like how that translates into a return on their investment. Secondly, I think small POCs really help. So if you start with a concept and like just do a proof of concept exercise and say, okay, I'm going to build this proof of concept exercise, show them the vision that I have. And then once they see it, I know that they're going to say, no brainer, this is the way to do it, right? So those POCs go a long way. Secondly, I think sometimes you get inspiration from not within the org and outside the org, right? You show the leadership how others in the industry are doing things and are implementing machine learning. And once they see that, they will know that if they don't adopt, then they're going to fall behind. And so that is one of the ways that you can ask them to listen and implement machine learning. And then, well, one thing that has worked for me in the past is that I get like a project sponsor, right? So from all of your leadership team, usually like you will find a couple of people that are more excited about data and new technology and things that data can do. You basically pick those people as your executive sponsor. Then they will also advocate for you in the group. And that has worked for me as well in the past. So yeah.
Yeah, great advice for those trying to implement more machine learning to their projects. When you define a machine learning project, I'm sure there's a lot of different things to think about and different things that you need to communicate with your team on. And so what are some of the steps that you really have to think about when mapping out this kind of project?
So when you start with a project, right, you do need a good project proposal or put together a project charter. Start with the why, right? Why are you doing something? And then, I mean, you need to have a solid, like we don't just do things for the heck of it, right? So it's like, okay, I'm doing this to reduce my cost or to increase my conversion rate or to increase revenue. So start with the why and then go into like who you're building this for. Define your customer. How are they going to use it? Define what you are exactly building and what you are not building also, right? So sometimes there is scope creep in your project charter as well because your mission statement is too broad or your objective is too broad. So try to like narrow it down. Here's the thing that I'm trying to build and this is what it's going to do for my customers, right? And see if you have underlying data, what kind of data infrastructure would you need to implement this and to create this a model or whatever that you're trying to build, and then define how you're going to measure success. So once you build a thing, so what? So like most of the times you build a thing and you're like, okay, yeah, this is a machine learning model. It's super exciting because it's new and it's a brand new way of doing this. But then for executives, I think it is very necessary for us to tie it to, okay, so we built this, so what, right? We built this so that we can improve our customer service or we reduce the number of man hours by 50% on how we classify transactions. So do define those KPIs and tie your project to business outcomes. And then also define all the teams that will be impacted that you will need to be working with because it's a team effort. Machine learning cannot be just like limited to the data scientists and the data engineers and they're going out and doing the whole thing. It does involve multiple dev teams to work together. And so define all those teams and how they will be impacted. And then, yeah, just get stakeholder buy-in into your project. So once you have a very well-written project charter document that defines the whys, the whats, and then all the key investment areas and how you're going to measure the success, I don't think you should have a problem in getting stakeholder buy-in and getting the executives to stand behind you.
Yeah, definitely great way to really talk about the entire roadmap of the things that you really have to think about. There's a lot of key aspects that you brought up there, and it's so great to hear. And a key part of also just building these machine learning models is just understanding the purpose of it for the actual outcome for, let's say, the customer sometimes. And how do you measure success in terms of the customer?
Yeah, and you're right. It is the key, right? So you have to, I think anything that we do in businesses like has to have a purpose, right? It needs to do something for your customer. And if that is not the case, then it will fail, right? right? No matter how brilliant that project is, if it doesn't have an impact on your customers, then that project is a no-go, in my opinion. So it depends, but the answer is not like it's not a one-size-fit-all kind of answer. So it really depends on your project as well. So for example, when we did an NLP project that classifies transactions based on their description, our objective was to reduce the number of hours it took our technology support team to classify the transactions, and they were doing it manually. So if it would take them 8 hours to do classification for one financial institution, we reduced the time to like 30 minutes. And so that was the benefit that our customers got from this model. And our customers in this case was the technology support engineers, right? When we built the recommendation system, here we are providing better and more relevant offers to the customers. So we are improving customer service, and we are also increasing the response rate from the customers on our marketing campaigns. So that's how we measure that one. When you're optimizing logistics for business customers, then you're measuring success in terms of dollars saved when you're looking at like your logistics spend and improvement in your time to deliver. So it really does depend. It varies from project to project, and it depends on what you are trying to achieve. And again, that project charter really helps with that, because it really makes you like, it sounds very nebulous and time consuming, but it really helps you think through why you're doing something, what are you doing, and then how will you measure it. And even though it sounds really simple, it takes a whole lot of time to define these. And then once you have clarity around these things, really success with everything you do after that follows. And so execution just becomes really, really, really simple when you have a clear project proposal or project charter behind your projects.
Yeah, great explanation. Absolutely. There's a lot of different things that you have to really think about for the customer. And there's so many things that you brought up in this conversation that were so insightful and great advice to our audience as well of really how to use and implement machine learning within their business. And Zehra, I want to say thank you so much for being on the show. Where's somewhere that everyone can find you online so that they can connect with you?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn. They can look me up, Zehra Ali.
Okay, great.
The best way to connect.
Yeah, definitely. And to our audience, for more information on the data standard, you can find us at www.datastandard.io, as well as on our LinkedIn and YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Zehra, for joining us today. It was so great to have you on the show and just learn more about your background and your advice here. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.